here today discussing whole genome sequencing, or WGS, with Dr. David Acheson. And we know that the FDA is using it to match strains across facilities and across time to see where outbreaks started or where they are occurring. So given this, questions have come up as to whether facilities should be using it. But if a primary purpose is to match the strain, is there a benefit to a facility using it? And what is that benefit if there is?
That's a really good question in terms of what should facilities do in terms of whole genome sequencing with the isolates that they pull out. And I'm going to answer that by saying, first and foremost, a company that's got a good environmental control program in place and that's being verified through a good environmental monitoring program will from time to time find pathogens. They'll find Listeria species. They'll find Salmonella. It's almost inevitable if the program is good. Obviously, there's a whole protocol in terms of what you do with that. What we want to avoid is having what's known as a resident strain in the plant.
Oh, okay.
What we want, what we anticipate every now and again, a Listeria is going to pop up somewhere. We want to find it, we want to deal with it, and we want to move on. If you start to see Listeria appearing perhaps a little more often than you used to, or recurring in the same area, same is true of Salmonella, in the same part of the plant, ask yourself, could this be a resident strain? Do I have a wall somewhere, a crack, a hole, a piece of equipment that's got some food buildup in it that I've forgotten about, failed to pull out, a hollow leg in a piece of equipment that's become a harborage site that is constantly seeding out Listeria or Salmonella, whatever it may be.
Okay.
That's where using a genetic tool to ask that question, do I have a resident strain in my plant? You want to find that out and fix it before FDA comes in and tells you you've got a resident strain, because generally those conversations don't go well. And it starts to bring questions around the safety of all the product that you've produced since you've had that resident strain, because the FDA will say, well, your cleaning and sanitation programs, your environmental control programs aren't adequate because you've got a resident strain. They anticipate what we call transient strains, which is the opposite. They come in, they go away, you see it again, it's a different strain. That's transient. Resident means it's living somewhere. Now, you can use whole genome sequencing. There are other tools out there to look for genetic relatedness, but fundamentally, you need to know whether there's a resident strain. Now, the concern that companies have is that if I start mapping my Listeria and Salmonella in my plant, is that discoverable by FDA? Can they come in and take all that sequencing and plug it into their database and say, I gotcha. And that might sound frivolous, but it really is a genuine concern. And I don't think legally we've really figured out what the answer to that is.
Oh, okay.
Where I stand on this is that I have never to date seen FDA come in and take that information and use it against a company. I've never seen them do that.
Okay.
And it's been around for a while, so I feel very good about that. The second part is I would rather take the risk and do the sequencing or some tool to look for the genetic relatedness and know whether it's there and deal with it than wait for the FDA to come in and find a problem. Mm. So, as with almost everything that TAG does, there's no clear black and white answer. It's custom. It's like, what's your situation? Is there a way to manage it? What are the risks if you do the sequencing? What are the risks if you don't? And those are good conversations to have, but understanding, as everything in food safety, is a risk-benefit balance. And there really isn't a clear answer today, but at least philosophically, the more you know about the strains in your plant, the better off you're going to be. And using whole genome to do that is a good strategy.
So if a facility doesn't know a whole lot about WGS beyond what we've learned in this session, can TAG be of assistance?
TAG can certainly help with helping a company understand how whole genome sequencing may or may not be helpful to them in terms of managing.
Okay.
And I think that fundamentally, that's a question that one has. There are some companies that use it. There are many that don't. And I certainly believe it's possible to manage risks without using whole genome sequencing. But that's a conversation that TAG would have. And it builds into the bigger picture of looking at your environmental control program and your environmental monitoring program and asking the question, is doing whole genome sequencing a good addition, or is it just creating unnecessary risk? And more importantly, like any test that you do or any investigation, we would have the discussion around, well, what do we do if we find a positive or we find a resident strain? You have to think about the consequences, and that's a big part of what we will do as well, working with clients to understand all of that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, David. I've learned more about whole genome sequencing as well, and hope that our audience has too. And if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to TAG. Thank you.
Thanks.